So I've screwed them together, putting a centering drill in and now lining it up on the chuck, as you've seen me now do many times. And these are the 2 bores that I wanted and described. They're now in those odd fitting pieces of brass. Not worried about that, I'm going to grind it down in the end. I'm just going to check to make sure that fits, and it does. So these are the end pieces. I've drilled the holes for the screws and the clearances also. This is a clearance for the top of the bolt, and they're not quite there yet, just filing them out to make it fit. Every one of these is individual. I make sure that number 1 fits to number 2, but this is how basically it looks. And so I can't swap these around. I have to remember exactly. I've got marks on there that you can probably see. I've now turned this off as I described, and that's going to be the cap. I've made the little plastic bush that's going into the end. I've got the O-ring under that so I can make it nice and flat, and now I'm just testing that out for clearance. Now there's something here I need to show you. Everybody makes mistakes, and I made a mistake. In cutting the hole in one of the plates, or in both of the plates, for the piece of solid housing, I overdid it. So I'm making here a little bush that's going to help center, because it's very important that everything's centered. So this is a little correctional bush in the lathe, and you can see it right down the bottom there. It's just holding that in, and I'm going to solder the whole thing in, and in retrospect, of course, it's making it all even stronger. So it's now nicely soldered on, and now I'm going to just let that cool down. You should never quench these things. And that's the prop shaft. It's quite long, as you can see, and now I've silver soldered the collets on the end of this, which are going to go straight onto the motor. We'll talk more about that later. Here are the collets to join the shafts. There are the housings with the nice little, that's one end which the collet will go into, and this is the other end for the seal plates, O-rings. It's all there. It's all ready to go. Pretty exciting stuff. That's what it looks like now, assembled. This is the first time I've had it together, and it's pretty good, I think. I'm pretty happy with both of them. The trick with this is to make sure that they line up perfectly. Okay, so here are the finished items, and this shaft is turning beautifully in there. It's connected to the motor, and it's extremely nice. But I did have a bit of trouble with this, and I'm just going to quickly show you this. The way I did it was to take the piece of brass, cut a hole in that end, and cut a smaller hole for the motor in that end, and then silver solder it on. Well, that was not that successful. A much better way of doing it was to cut the piece of brass like that, cut the hole, the 5mm hole for the shaft, silver solder it straight in, then put that in the chuck and put the dial indicator on there to get that really spot on. Then I took a nice little cut off there to straighten it up. The next thing to do was to settle this now back into the chuck so that I'm holding that new aligned piece in the chuck, put the dial indicator on there, get that right, and then put the hole in. That worked terrifically. Should have thought of that before I started, eh? So I'm now opening out those holes, and the best way to do that is simply with putting a bigger drill through and then getting a file out. I mean, plastic isn't too hard to open out. And a bit of elbow grease here, and we can make these, and it's good to have a bit more control too as you do it, because these are going to be very close to that O-ring groove, and I want to make sure that I'm just cutting out what I need. So now I've got the long piece of shaft. It doesn't have the prop on the end, obviously, and I've kept it like this so that I can line this up with one solid piece of shaft. I've got the bush in the end where the prop would normally come out, and now I'm just testing the position of this. It's very important that I get the shaft to line up. Now this is how it now looks, and I've got to say that's pretty nice. And I've glued those in with some epoxy, and I think you can see the angle on those. It's really quite interesting, and I've got those. No, I haven't glued them in yet. I'm still just getting these shafts right in the center of the housing, as you can see. But this is the finished product, and I think that's looking, apart from the messy bog, I think that's looking pretty good. Now I've tacked them in place with 5-minute epoxy. Now I'm using some car body filler to pack in around these, fill these holes up so that this simply will not move. The trick with that bog, once again, is to trim it all up before it goes really hard when it's at the cheese consistency. So now I have shortened the prop shaft, I have shortened the shaft out of the motor, and we're ready to go.